Hey guys, this is Allison from Allykatkreations. How are you? Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. If you get a mic drop, an epiphany moment, a new author to read, or a new book to explore, please consider supporting my work, keeping me fed. That's a biggie. Keeping the kitties fed, keeping the lights on, the electric on. I'm still here. I release it to the universe because there's nothing I can do about it. Nothing. Nothing. So, Realms of the Living Dead. This is a beautiful chapter. I'm going to start. Chapter 6, The Awakening. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's epic. Epic, epic, epic. Why? We're there. We're in that now. Quote, sweet friends, what the women have, is it have or lav? Lav. Women, what the women lav. For the last sleep of the grave is a hut which I am quitting, is a garment no more fitting, is a cage from which at last, like a bird, my soul hath passed. Love the intimate, not the room, the wearer, not the garb, the plume, of eagle, not the bars, that kept him from those splendid stars. End quote. After Death in Arabia, Arnold. In the case of the majority of persons, the first emotion on awaking in the astral world is an intense and weird loneliness, a confused consciousness of being surrounded by vague, shadowy forms, and of being watched by innumerable eyes, yet without the ability fully to formulate their thoughts or understand by whom or what they are watched. For at this stage, the awakened ones have not yet learned to use their astral senses or to discriminate amongst the strange sights, sounds, and feelings. It must be remembered that in the astral world for a time, they are in the same relative position as is a newborn babe when it first opens its eyes to the earth life. Could we enter into the babe's feelings, we would find vague memories of the life it had left, a sense of just awakening from a deep sleep, the period of gestation, and a newborn, an uncomprehending wonder at the strange sights and sounds surrounding it. If, however, the one passing over have studied, or had at least some understanding of what they are to expect, the confusion is but momentary. And if they had prepared for the change by having some wise soul gather together their loved friends and relatives to meet them, it is a joyous reunion. In the case of sudden death, either by accident or in the war, when the mind is filled with the desire for life and the intense excitement of battle, the first awakening often brings the soldiers a sense of being suddenly awakened after having fallen asleep at their posts, and they look around in amazement for the familiar battlefield. The great stillness after the roar of battle strikes terror to their souls. Then perhaps a bird can be heard singing joyously near them, for the physical sounds can be heard in the astral until its singing melts their hearts, and perhaps a flood of tears brings relief. Even those who have passed on in hatred, with the lust for killing strong within them, awaken in the great silence and loneliness, only to find no one near them. In both instances, this is purely arranged so that whatever is good in them may have a chance to awaken. Especially is this true in the case of those who pass out through an explosion, or who have been victims of bursting shell, in which case the astral as well as the physical body has been shattered. In such a case, it will take some time, the attractive and cohesive power of the life principle can draw the astral atoms around it and reconstruct the bodily form. During this period, the soul remains unconscious. In such a case, the feeling of first awakening will be quite similar to the sensations of returning consciousness after an anesthetic, the same feeling of faintness and exhaustion, which, however, soon passes off. Many, after passing through the first period of silence and great loneliness, when they first begin to recognize others around them, even one whom on earth they would have called an enemy, are so glad to find companionship that, be they on their side or the enemy's, they are eagerly sought. For at this stage, it is attitude of the real inner man that is apparent. Hence, those of similar natures and ideals are instinctively attracted, no matter what their positions may have been on earth. Only as they begin to identify themselves with their old earthly conditions, with the old personality, its uniform, equipment, last orders, etc., do they realize the difference in nationality. With some few, however, the force of the old hostilities and thoughts may for a time impel them to hunt out and attack the enemy. In such cases, they at once, through their strong thought force, return to the battlefield on the physical plane. But once they had found conditions greatly changed. When in the flesh, it was quite easy to know on which side they were fighting. Friend and foe could be distinguished merely by their uniforms. But now all is different. For to the astral sight, the real forces back of the war, good and evil, are plainly seen, and the aura of each man who is truly heroically fighting for principle, even through mistaken, is illumined by the light of his ideals, the light varying in color and brilliancy according to the strength and purity of these ideals, while over each one filled only with cruelty, hatred, and the desire to kill, a sort of blood madness, can be seen hosts of the most malignant entitized forces manifesting in forms which express thoughts of evil, which generate them. These forms are seen to surround their victims, sometimes like monstrous serpents, which breathe in and out of their bodies, emerging from the heart or solar plexus, or again from the mouth or head. And over all may be seen clouds of evil faces, forms of unspeakable cruelty, and I don't know if I could reject this word, guys. Lasciviousness not coming out. Horribly pictured in living but unearthly shapes. If the soul belongs to the side of evil, he will join his forces with the monsters in orgies of horror and throw himself madly into the fray, becoming in turn, because of his disembodiment, an obsessing demon. If, however, he has in him even a spark of better feeling, and how few are entirely without it, sooner or later he allies himself on the side of good. But there are thousands of helpers on the battlefield and in the trenches, trying to help all those who will listen to realize their real condition and what they are really fighting against. They are thus gradually taught that it is not their fellow man they should attack, but the evil forces that are obsessing certain leaders of their central powers and trying to obsess the rank and file as well, playing upon and enlarging and driving to extreme expression every animal and brutal instinct and selfish desire, which becomes like an open door through which such forces can manifest. All the lust forms and demons, which are the inciting causes of war, are there seen in their true and hideous form, the personified forms of lust, hate, greed, cruelty, ambition, desire for power, etc. These evil entities are seen to swarm around and mingle in among the fighters on both sides and urge them to give vent to cruelty and their brazer passions. But as we have seen, they are successful only with those whose minds are open and receptive to such incitements. Therefore, hundreds of thousands of soldiers in the astral gathered from both sides of the conflict are fighting side by side to destroy the obsessing demons. In fact, many of the soldiers from the Central Powers, seeing how their former leaders and comrades are obsessed by these whirling vortices of evil forces, are the most eager, energetic, and courageous of all, for it takes courage of high moral as well as physical quality to encounter these vaporous calamity whirlwinds of evil in their efforts to destroy them and free their people from their influence. Especially is this true of those illiterate portions of Central Europe where witchcraft and black magic have been practiced for ages and whose inhabitants are especially susceptible to such influence. Those in the astral who keep trying to fight are only those who have made themselves channels through which the evil astral forces express, and who would be so filled with hatred and lust of battle that they would desire to continue after passing on, just as it is only the comparative few out of the great masses of mankind who desire to continue their habits of debauchery after passing on. We're seeing that now. Oh, we're seeing that now. As we said in the philosophy of war, the real instigators of this war are the evil astral forces, quote, the hosts of the accumulated thought forms of lust, greed, envy, hate, selfishness, and unbrotherliness, engendered by the wrong thinking of humanity from the beginning, as well as the results of their evil words and deeds, all of which are ever seeking expression through their creators. During this battle, all the stored up evil must have a focus through which it can pour itself out upon lowest or physical plane, where it precipitation will end the cycle of its manifestation, adjust the karma, and permit the good aspect of the forces involved to be extracted. End quote. Germany, through ambition, pride, and lust for power, has opened the door to the hordes of evil astral forces which are seeking to obsess humanity and wreak their will upon it. Hence, through giving expression to these forces, Germany has become the instrument through which they are being poured out into the world to the testing of the other nations, just as Judas became the instrument of testing to the other disciples. Oh. Testing. Remember that word. Testing. Everything is a test here. You have to take everything as a test. We get tested. That's why evil is here. Which side do you belong on? Well, it's a test to see where you belong. And if you are in a lower vibration, these little suckers parasite on you. What side are you on? If you're of the most high and high vibration, they can't touch you. But if you let your guards down and you do some things that are questionable, they can insert. Just saying. Chapter 7, Astral Helpers. Quote, death is not a word to fear, any more than birth is. We change our state at birth and come into the world of air and sense and maraude existence. We change our state at death and enter a region of what? End quote. Raymond Lodge. In the physical world, we are able to mold or shape the matter of this world according to our thought, but it requires special instruments such as knives, saws, chisels, especially processes such as dissolving or melting the materials and pouring them into specifically and especially prepared molds. But the material of the astral world is so plastic that it is molded by thought force and will. Hence, all that is necessary in the world is to think intently of that thing desired, and it will soon appear. It will be perfect and beautiful in proportion as the thought held is clear, definite and perfect, or will be hazy and imperfect as the thought is not clear or is allowed to wander. The thing desired will also appear quickly or slowly according as the will and desire for it is strong or weak. For forms in the astral world seem to the astral sight as solid and substantial as do the forms on earth to our physical sight. Although we know that the particles of such physical forms are separated by relatively large spaces, a person in the lower realms of the astral can even pinch himself and feel the substantial flesh or injure himself by being struck by an astral object. In fact, the astral body can be wounded not only by astral weapons, but by physical instruments with sharp points or cutting edges. Quote, when swords are struck at shades, it is the sword itself, not its astral, that cuts. Sharp instruments alone can penetrate astral. Underwater, a blow will not affect you, but a cut will. End quote. This is one reason why swords crossed above at bed have for ages been considered a protection against astral entities. No blood flows from such wounds, but for a short time the life force may be seen oozing out as a lavender mist. Pause. There are many light workers right now who have been in our astral form fighting these evil little things. And many of us wake up with a lot of bruises on ourselves, black and blues, cuts, scrapes, burns, even little burn marks. I've woken up many of times with a lot of bruises all over my body with no explanation. I don't move much in my sleep, and I don't have anybody to sleep with besides kitty cats, who usually sleep in another room. So, go figure. Back to the book. Astral forms and objects, when seen by the living but untrained clairvoyant, may seem most shadowy and unsubstantial. And were a mortal to try to touch such objects with his physical hand, it would pass through them quite as readily as they pass through a physical object. On the other hand, physical objects, when seen from the astral world, are quite as shadowy and transparent. Those who lose limbs or other parts of the body through war, accident, or surgical operations find them fully restored in the astral, although for a time their old habits of thought may make them seem still lacking, if it has been some time since their loss. Long continued thought of the loss of a limb gradually atrophies the astral double, but after passing on, when the thought pressure is removed, the life force rapidly flows in and the limb soon fills out. When they first pass into the astral, the missing limb seems to be but a mist or a vapor, hence it is not recognized. But this atrophied vapory limb gradually solidifies until the limb is as perfect as the rest of the body. If the limb or organ has only recently been lost, its astral double will be quickly recognized. The things created in the astral are thus not mere figments of the imagination or mere thought forms, but are thought forms which have descended into the astral world from the mental world and have attracted to themselves the emanations of corresponding things on earth. Thus the astral and finer physical substances released and thrown off from their forms by the ever-changing process of life, also by the greater disintegrating process of decay, ascend into the astral and are embodied either into corresponding astral forms or are used in giving astral substantially to their other creations. Damn, I can't wait for a new set of teeth. Everything is created by thought and desire. For instance, on first passing over, the soul appears in the clothing he last remembered, having put on, for the thought forms of his whole wardrobe are at hand, ready to take on astral substantially by the creative power of his thought. There are also shops and factories where anything the person thinks he must have can be obtained. Elements created by thought and embodied in astral matter are often built up into artificial but powerful tribal deities and worshipped as such by the lower types of savages. And such entities will fight and work for those who serve them. To obtain greater power to accomplish physical results on Earth, such tribal elementals often require the physical life force liberated by the shedding of blood, hence demand the blood sacrifice of some animal or even human being. Oh, I can't wait for all this to come out to the public. What's been happening on our Earth plane? For real. Such entities are not spirits in the sense of angels or higher spiritual beings, usually referred to by the term, nor are they even disembodied mortals, but are entirely non-human except insofar as they have been endowed with the low cunning or intellect and other human qualities by the stream of thought force and other emanations of their devotees. It is the communion with and worship of such non-human entities that constitutes spiritism and necromancy as distinguished from spiritualism, the latter referring to the communion with the human and superhuman residents of the astral world. There is nothing spiritual, only devilish about the first process, while the latter is highly spiritual in spite of many exceptions among those who seek only physical phenomena and care little for their own moral and spiritual development. Whether and whenever blood is shed, a certain class of elementals is attached, for as they are seeking advance and ultimate human embodiment, they seek to imbibe the life force from the blood of higher forms of life, especially the humans. Hence, all surgical operations should be preceded by prayer or invocation of the patient, should be surrounded by the protecting thoughts of his friends during the operation. When this is not done, elementals frequently enter his aura, increasing the liability to infect through depleting the vitality and even causing infection through the precipitating astral infections into the wound, where they may attach themselves to him as vampires, sap his vitality, and retard or even prevent recovery. In many cases in which these or similar directions have been followed, the recovery has been astonishingly rapid and complete, the time required in many cases being less than half the usual. Some surgeons and physicians naturally have this protecting power. Hence, while no more skillful than others, their percentage of recoveries is much greater than that of their colleagues, especially after having received these instructions from the order and consciously controlling the conditions. Now ask yourselves, why in the last 2 years people weren't allowed to visit hospitals and people died? No one prayed. Boom. Boom. Spiritual war. Makes me angry. Students of the OCM who are about to undergo serious operations can be met in the astral world as they pass out of the body under the anesthetic by a special band of trained workers and nurses who will take care of them and protect their physical body while it is being operated on. If they will notify the secretary of the order in time, either by letter or telegram, and at the same time send out a mental call for the teacher and helpers of the order in the higher realms. If there is no time to notify the secretary of the mental, call for help, and protection will bring it. Of course, such help and protection are not confined to members of the order, but the order has special organization for that purpose. We have many letters on that file testifying to the practical nature of such help, both from the surgeons and the patients themselves. If no attempt is made to take care of patients at such time, they tend to wait around near the body, often remaining so close to the physical that they suffer severe nervous shock or agonies of fear if they see the apparition from the astral. This fear always adds to the dangers, retards recovery, and even though apparently forgotten lives in the subconscious mind as a vague horror for the rest of their lives. Hence, the importance of being taken care of during the operation and receiving psychic and spiritual help during the convalescence. Also, at such time, it is quite possible for the soul to be taken far above the physical, even into the presence of the masters, and to receive helpful instructions, which, even though seemingly forgotten on awakening from the anesthetic, will still have its influence on their lives or come to them as a memory at a further future date. Since the American Indians are very closely affinitized to the earth, it is in this realm where most of them remain and pursue their desires in this happy hunting ground. The Christian mystic philosophy teaches that each human being has its sole home on the planet from whose spiritual hierarchy it emanated. Oh, I'm not from Earth. Oops. Yikes. As the sole home of the Indians is on this planet, they are properly called Earth children. They are affinitized to the soul of the Earth, that they can correlate more perfectly with its forces. Hence, after they pass on, they can bring a great deal of vital force and healing magnetism to those in touch with them. This is one of the reasons for the many cures wrought through their aid. And this is why when I move, I have to contact a Native American or the tribes that are there to learn how they cleanse land so that I can properly do that wherever I go. They told me so. Naturally, therefore, the Indians are usually the first ones to be encountered by one who is beginning to develop his astral senses. We therefore find that nearly all subjective mediums who go under control have an Indian for a guide and have Indians in their spirit band. It's true. These Indians are by no means the lowest dwellers in the astral world, but they are simply the nearest to the physical world. They are usually kind-hearted and desirous of helping their mediums to the best of their ability and do not know that their method of helping or guiding to sending into medium's body to control it. It is a wrong and degenerating method, both to themselves and to the mediums. They are in striking contrast to that undesirable and most dangerous class of entities, the voodoo workers, sorcerers, and black magicians of various savage tribes who have passed into the astral and desire to secure followers and pupils to penetrate their rites and practices. But as said above, those are not likely to be contacted by the white people of civilized nations unless sought for. False! And again, this was written in like 1915 or 1916, something like crazy like back then. So they have, I think they have a huge idea, but I really don't know if they understand the insanity of the black arts that spans back to the beginning. White people. It's all people. All people. But I get it. In this realm also wander the earthbound spirits, or those who are bound close to the earth by some great and overwhelming desire, such as revenge for having been murdered, the miser's love for his gold, the youth's desire for physical life, Only when the desire has been satisfied or the person is willing to trust his desire to the great law for fulfillment can be released, for he's bound by his thought and desire and often follows it for hundreds of years, its very force making a wall around him, which shuts him away from the higher forces which would otherwise help him to progress out of his conditions, as the average person would naturally do. In fact, the soul remains in each realm until it learns the lessons of the realm. That applies to us in the living too. Realizes within it made the mistakes which retard its growth and unfoldment, and evolves to the point where it is ready to pass on to the higher realms. The earthbound entities are usually so dense and have so much of earthly conditions attached to them that under certain atmospheric conditions they appear to the objective sight of mortals, and especially to animals. Horses shying at those so-called ghosts in the road, dogs bristling or cringing and whining at them, as more or less dense, cold, clammy cloud or ghost. It is well known that the proximity of a wrath or a ghost brings to mortals a chill or perhaps a shiver of horror. The reason for this is that the dense astral body is so laden with water vapor that it is like a cold, dense fog, which abstracts heat from the living body it approaches, and the sudden loss of heat, like a cold, damp wind, causes the chill. The sense of horror is due to the fact that most of such ghosts passed out under horrible conditions, which horror is communicated to the mortal contacted, although fear of the dead is also a contributing factor. Not for a lot of people. The love of parents, which makes them remain close to the children left behind, or the love of husband, wife, or son for the one left on earth, while it keeps them in close touch with the dear ones, does not hold them in the sense in which the term is generally used. For such cases, they usually progress into higher realms, and in this time learn to overshadow the loved ones mentally rather than in their astral bodies, and learn to communicate through telepathy. I passed my mother on because she was stuck on wanting to make sure that I was okay, which is beautiful. But I'm like, you got to go upstairs, honey. And that was not easy to do. She did not want to go. Just as the dense physical body is left behind when the soul leaves the realms of physical activity, so is the dense astral body left behind when the soul dies to the lower realms of the astral. Here, just as there are graveyards for the discarded physical bodies on earth, so are there regions in the realm of reflection where the discarded and disintegrating astral bodies are gathered. But in the realms where all is exposed to view, the disintegrating bodies cannot be covered up and have flowers and trees planted over them as on earth. Hence, peoples who are still on earth sometimes wander into such regions when out in the astral, just as they might wander into the physical graveyard, and are often badly frightened by the ghastly sights encountered. But a strong thought will immediately carry them up, through, and away from such regions. Here again, we find an analogous condition to earth, for just as many advanced souls are teaching on earth the advisability of cremation, so in the astral realms, many who are following the higher teachings evoke the higher potencies of fire and destroy these astral corpses, as it were, with the breath. This is an important work, for as we have explained many times, a low class of elementals sometimes takes possession of these discarded forms and masquerades as the person, thus deceiving many. Oh, geez, Louise. When the astral body is cast off, since it is finer and more enduring, it disintegrates, which more slowly than the physical body. And under certain circumstances, such a discarded astral body or empty shell can be temporarily inhabited by a mischievous or perhaps an evil elemental, and so be galvanized into the semblance of the departed one. The memory pictures still remain in the astral brain, can be stimulated, and so the shell may apparently be made to remember names, places, incidents, though and through which its former tenant had passed. soul scalping. Such animated shells are not infrequently present at seances and strive to be accepted as genuine return of the deceased. But such fraud is easily detached and exposed by a challenge or by a determined and incessant desire that nothing shall manifest that is not what it purports to be. In such case, your intuition will warn you that something is wrong and will remind you to challenge the manifestation. It is in this realm of reflection that the governing consciousness of plants, also ants, spiders, and similar insects resides. It is also as high as the consciousness of many trans mediums, and also the idiot ascends, for the idiot is often not merely deflective, but is simply a human animal in which no human soul has incarnated, hence is capable of developing only as an animal. Interesting. So I'm going to leave that there. Hope you enjoyed. We're going through that right now, all of it right now. We have a lot of things happening, a lot of thought forms being formed, a lot of people having oppression, parasites, and they have an agenda. They have an agenda. We have to stop and think, protect and shield our essence, our bodies, all through our thoughts, all through our intention. Anybody could do it. You don't need to meditate. You could just visualize it in your mind. You could draw it out. Whatever it is that you could do to protect your essence, do it. Sending each and every one of you love and light. I hope each and every one of you have a very safe, keyword, safe, be seen, be heard, be loud and proud. Be prepared. Hope all of you have a fantastic rest of your week. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I get a lot of views and not enough likes. That's a bummer on the bummer wheel, but that just helps me get this out further. So please help. And I'll see you on the next one, guys. Bye.